The British police are taking some strict action against protest slogans and placards that they believe target the Jewish community, stating that slogans such as globalized the Intifada will now trigger enforcement action if used at demonstrations. In London, 2 people were arrested at a pro-Palestinian demonstration for racially aggravated public order offences after allegedly shouting slogans involving calls for an Intifada. The 2 more arrests were later made for public order offences, and a 5th person was then detained for obstructing the police. The tougher stance follows a mass shooting at Australia's Bondi Beach, where about 15 people were killed during an event marking the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. It also follows an attack at a synagogue in Manchester in October, where 2 Jewish worshippers were killed during Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Jewish calendar. The British police have also increased some security around synagogues, Jewish schools and community centres across the United Kingdom. And according to official figures, hate crime referrals and completed prosecutions have risen by 17% to more than 1,500 cases in the first 6 months of the year.
I think success for society is a society that's completely hostile to anti-Semitism and where Jews don't feel threatened and don't feel anxious for their own safety. There's much we can do as policing. We're putting more patrols out there, we're intensifying our work on hate crime, and we're going to get tougher on those using outrageous chants and slogans. But there's also responsibilities on wider civic leadership to create a different climate where people can disagree without creating this hostile environment which is undermining Jew safety.
Now, Jewish groups in the United Kingdom have called it an important step towards challenging hateful rhetoric, inspiring acts of violence and terror. The pro-Palestinian groups, on the other hand, have criticized the lack of consultation before the policy shift and have said that the new stance threatens free expression. Intifada refers to the Palestinian uprising against the Israeli occupation of their lands. The first one was between 1987 till 1993, while the second one had flared up between the years 2000 and 2005. All right, now joining us on the broadcast, we've got Stuart Smith, who's joining us live from London. Stuart, tell us more about this change in policy, about the slogans that will now be cracked down upon by the police in Britain.
Yeah, I think it's important to know exactly what you said there. It's a change of policy by the police. The law itself hasn't changed. The crimes that these 2 activists were charged with was a racially aggravated public order offence. But what has changed is the 2 largest police forces in England, the Greater Manchester Police and London's Metropolitan Police, now say that the words using Intifada or talking about anything to do with Intifada will be considered part of that crime. And so that will be tested. That still will need to be checked out in the court system, and whether indeed juries will convict upon that basis, because there's a question here about meaning and intention. The pro-Palestinian activists say that this is not a call for violence, it's a call for liberation, but that directly contradicts what many Jewish groups say, who believe it is a call for violence. Now the police say the context has changed. Specifically, the 2 police forces put out a statement saying violent acts have taken place, words have meaning and consequences, we will act decisively and make arrests. So the police believe that now, because of the global situation, that these words could be used to crack down on this form of expression. Right,
Stuart, at this point, just to clarify on this, has the police said anything about what kind of slogans will now be acceptable? Because these people have been protesting against the war in the Gaza Strip, also call for free Palestine, which is a very popular slogan, stop the genocide, stop the killing. Are some of these slogans also now going to be banned by the police in Britain?
There's no intention to provide further examples of the kinds of phrases that cannot be used. This specifically relates to the use of the word Intifada. There are other debates taking place, for example, around support for a group called Palestinian Action, but that is related to supporting, or the appearance of support for, a terror organisation rather than a call for violence. The police aren't saying what can be used, but they are saying what cannot be used, and that is now on the list of phrases that pro-Palestine groups cannot. But they do see it as another example of a restriction on their freedom of speech. One of the groups earlier said that the horrific massacre in Australia should not be used as a justification to further repress fundamental democratic rights of protest and free speech in the country. The police, though, they counter that by saying it is possible to protest in support of Palestinian people without intimidating Jewish communities or breaking the law. And that's key to this. Especially the Jewish groups and now these two police forces believe that it's an intimidating phrase that calls for violence.
Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Stuart Smith, for joining us with all those updates there. For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.